Hey, this is C&D channel. I'm Chris. This is my dog, and this is MMA for you. I'm going to be doing my InvictaFC 7 post-fight analysis. I know I'm a little late to be doing this, but actually, it's not the worst thing to do because I can also kind of segue into how the UFC absorbed the 115-pound strawweight women's division and got a good amount of fighters that actually fought on this card. So I can kind of segue into that. My picks were, I got 5 out of 8. Not great by any stretch of imagination. There's actually a lot to talk about with this card outside of the fights, so I'm actually going to get to that too. As far as bonuses go, both Honchek and Smith pocketed $1,500 for their fight, and Nina Destrina Antroff got an extra $1,000 for knockout of the night over Muna Holland. Some of the notes got to talk about would be the stream that has to be addressed. The streaming issues have been affecting them since the first Invicta, and it's still haunting them today. And it is actually something that, a lot of people think, like, and this kind of segues, like, oh, they're going to lose all their talent. That's going to put Invicta out of business. I don't actually agree with that. I think stuff like the streaming issues and whatnot, and stuff outside of the cage, like monetizing the product, is gonna hurt Invicta more than losing this talent. To be perfectly honest with you, Shannon Knapp took down the paywall, which is cool. It's really unique with Invicta that Shannon Knapp and Invicta have managed to make such a cult following that you read comments like, just take my money. There's so much goodwill from Invicta to their fans that it's just like, they didn't have to do this. I want to give them my $15. I was one of those guys. It's like, they didn't have to refund me. If they don't want to refund me, they don't have to. That's how much people want to. Their following wants them to succeed, and for good reason. They're legitimately a great organization, and they're great for women's mixed martial arts, and they're a great mixed martial arts organization. They put out good fights, they treat their fans well, and everything's relevant, to get back to that 115-pound, weight class going to the UFC. The reason why I don't think it's gonna kill Invicta is I don't think there's any one fighter that besides Cyborg Santos that's particularly a draw for InvictaFC. I think collectively a lot of these fighters are like, Joan Caldwell, Rose Namajunas, Tisha Torres, Michelle Watterson, Jessica Penne. If they're fighting all on one card, then I think they can move the needle. Individually, I don't think people are saying, "Oh, Joan Caldwell's on the card. I'm gonna buy it now." I'd be one of those guys, but I don't think any one star is really moving the needle. Collectively, yes. Now, when I think about Invicta, that really helps Invicta is the brand sells itself. I think the Invicta name is the big selling point. Oh, there's an Invicta card. It feels special. You know what I mean? You almost don't care who's on it in a sense. If Leslie Smith's on the card, that's really cool. But Invicta is kind of being synonymous with women's MMA and really good, fun fights. As far as this card goes, though, this one's actually one of the weaker cards. I think, in my opinion, it is like the weakest card that they've had. It's very decision heavy, not a lot of finishes. I think the Lauren Murphy versus Miriam Nakamoto fight really, I don't think he got a good conclusion there. And that last minute removal of Gadelha versus Esparza being off the card really hurt the card as well. So, I mean, granted, a lot of things that went wrong with this card happened. It still was a good event, but it's it's definitely not like some of their previous cards. But yeah, nonetheless, it makes me really curious though where they go from here. Because it took a while for them to put this card out from their last event. It was like 5 or 6 months. They need that TV deal really bad. And also, I was going to mention something else too. Oh yeah, the amount of fights that have on the card. It's probably better they did this, but it was like originally like 10 fights or something, 9 or 10 fights were supposed to be on this card. And, back then they used to do like 13. Let's get started. Okay, Bob Honchak managed to keep her flyweight title as she beat Leslie Smith by unanimous decision. I really like Honchak's ability to mix in striking with wrestling. She's really good at it. She transitions well from the striking, and her striking's mainly, she does a lot of boxing, but she goes from like the striking phase to the grappling phase really well. I did like seeing Leslie Smith go for like the omoplata sweep. That was cool, and she was game the whole time, but her style just didn't work on Honchak. She knew how to not just brawl, not put her back up against the cage and let Leslie Smith tee off on her. And she mixed in her wrestling along with her striking really well. But this actually makes it really tough for this division now, because 125-pound female division just isn't that deep. And challengers, quite honestly, are slim. I mean, who does Honchak fight next? Like, Honchak-Leslie Smith was the best fight they can put at 125, to be perfectly honest with you. After that, I mean, Nina Ansaroff, who's coming off that win over Muna Holland, maybe? Michelle Old. If they want to get someone, I mean, I know in some rankings, like, Kalinda Faria is in the top 10 of the division. I guess they can get her. But for the most part, there aren't many contenders. And even if you look at Invicta's roster, I mean, it's not very, they don't have a lot of fighters. Honchak's already beat Vanessa Porto, Jennifer Maya, she lost to Leslie Smith, Frausta Gurgel, honestly, is on a 3-fight losing streak, and she just lost to Vanessa Porto. I mean, seriously, you kind of have to go with like Nina Ansaroff or something like that for the next contender, because there just isn't anyone there. Maybe I know Michelle Old just got signed to Invicta, so they'll probably go with Michelle Old, I guess. But yeah, there aren't many contenders for to fight Honchak. As far as Leslie Smith goes, I'd say give her Vanessa Porto next. It's a fight that makes sense. Both of them have lost to Barb Honchak. Smith's coming off a really spirited loss, and Porto's just coming off a win. I think that fight makes a lot of sense. Next fight after that, Lauren Murphy beat Miriam Nakamoto by TKO injury. It's an injury. It's a knee injury in the 4th round of their fight. This was a really interesting it's a really unfortunate end to the fight. I mean, as Nakamoto was really getting the first and second round, and you got to see her grappling finally. Her takedown defense looked pretty solid. So it was actually nice to see her grappling because it's such an unknown from Nakamoto. But around the third, when Murphy managed to take the fight to the ground, she was hitting some good ground and pound and whatnot. I don't know if the fight would have totally turned around or not, but it was interesting up until that point. And unfortunately, we really didn't get to know how the rest of the fight was going to turn out. Rematch is possible. If 135 belongs to the UFC. So, I mean, as far as who's on the roster, who like Murphy can get next, I'm thinking rematch makes the most sense, to be perfectly honest with you. If that's not possible, I mean, quite honestly, I think you have to go with like Tanya Evinger, who's coming off a win over Sarah D'Alelio. Because there's just not a lot of 135ers, unless they sign like Holly Holm or something like that. You can maybe do Kelly Cabold or something like that, but I think Nakamoto should fight Kelly Cabold, or maybe some new 135-pound female, like give her a newbie, because Nakamoto actually doesn't have a lot of fights under her belt. So what I would like to see, though, is a rematch. Okay, next fight after that, Tesha Torres beat Felice Herrig by unanimous decision. Dude, just domination from Tesha Torres. Esparza, Esparza even calls her out, in a short interview segment, We know what's going to happen with both these female fighters, though. They'll fight at 115 in the UFC through the Ultimate Fighter. I don't expect Herrig to get that far. Tesha Torres is definitely a favorite. Esparza is too. Calderwood and Gadelha. I would say those four would be the favorites. They don't have Jessica Aguilar. She's stuck in the World Series of Fighting. That would have been really interesting, as she has beaten Carla Esparza before. So, we know what happens with them now, so I can't really say who they fight next. They're going to be on the Ultimate Fighter. Next fight after that, Joanne Calderwood beat Katja Kakanpa by unanimous decision. Calderwood definitely needs a step up in competition, but she is going to be on the Ultimate Fighter. Katja Kakanpa is not, actually. Well, she could try out, because another name I didn't see in there was Mizuki Inoue. She should definitely be fighting there as well. They do have like Beck Hyatt, who lost to Mizuki Inoue. And Katja Kakanpa is definitely good enough to find out. And also, she's from Finland. They are getting into new markets. They should definitely take Kakanpa for sure. She is a good fighter, but also because she's Finnish, Get into the new market there. And Joanne Calderwood. And I guess this kind of segues into another thing that I like about the UFC is going with global expansion. A lot of these 115-pound female fighters are like international fighters. Joanne Calderwood's from Scotland. Katja Kakanpa is from Finland. Got a lot of Brazilians like Gadelha or Juliana Lima. Mizuki Inoue, she's Japanese. Beck Hyatt. And they also got Astro Girl Alex Chambers. She fights at 105 normally, but she's moving up. The Australian. Even in like the SFL in India, they had a main event with like Ritika Singh versus some Spanish girl. I forgot her name now. Irene Cabello. So there's a lot of talent out there internationally that would probably somewhat help the UFC's plans for international expansion. It's always nice to have a hometown or a hometown fighter, especially when they're going into these new places. So yeah, we know Joan Calderwood. She should be a favorite to go into the house. She's really soft-spoken. I think a lot of people will be taken aback by her. I'm very curious to see the season because like Felice Herrig, Beck Hyatt, they can be a bit sort of like boisterous sometimes, I guess. But like Calderwood, she comes off a little more like, like I can't believe she's a fighter type of person, But I don't know, maybe, don't know what the house is going to do with these people. And we'll see what happens with Katja Kankanpa. Like I said, I hope she gets signed to the UFC and gets on that season of The Ultimate Fighter. Okay, next fight after that, Julia Budd beat Charmaine Tweet by unanimous decision. I guess you gotta go with Budd versus Cyborg next. It's either that or Edion Gomez. Budd has a more better strength of resume at this, or like she's been fighting more often than Edion Gomez. So I'd probably go Julia Budd. Stylistically, she turned into a grappler. But she doesn't have enough finishing ability on the ground. That's the biggest problem with Julia Budd is if she can't get mount, she can't finish her opponent. I don't know if she can try. There was times when it looks like she was gonna try for an armbar, but kind of gave up on it. I would like to see her actually go for it. Stylistically, I mean, if Bud can't take Cyborg to the ground, and I don't know if she can, she might have some trouble. She's pretty much a case of the best option, and she is a good option to fight Cyborg. Stylistically, she is a kickboxer, really strong herself, and her grappling's greatly improved. I'd just like to see more finishing ability from Bud. Charmaine Tweet, the problem with Charmaine Tweet, and I noticed this in her fights, is she's way too content to stay on her back. And that just did not work against Julia Budd here at all. 145 women's division isn't very deep. I can see them keeping Charmaine Tweet. I don't know who she can fight per se. I'm not super. Maybe you go with Rothenhausler or something like that, I guess, for Charmaine Tweet or Tamika Brents or something like that. I don't know. Unless she's already fought them, I'm not too sure. Next fight after that, Vanessa Porto beat Zwala Frasso-Gurgel by unanimous decision. Frasso-Gurgel is on a 3-fight losing streak now. She lost to Jessica Evil Eye. Then she lost to Jennifer Maya. And then she lost to Vanessa Porto. If I'm not mistaken, too, in Bellator when she fought 115, I believe, after the tournament was over or something like that she was told it's too unsafe for her to cut to 115. So it's really tough to say. She definitely needs a good bounce back fight because she's just she's just not doing really well against some granted they're the higher level female flyweights out there. But yeah, I just say if they even keep her, just more lower to mid tier of the division, who's ever there, to be honest with you. With Vanessa Porto, I think I said it above, but yeah, give her Leslie Smith. Next fight was that Tanya Abinger beat Sarah Delalio by unanimous decision. I saw this with Delalio in her fight against Lauren Murphy. Sometimes she likes to work off her back because she has some really tricky jiu-jitsu. But for the most part, she should probably focus more on getting back to her feet when she's taken down than go for submissions and sweeps on her back. Tanya Abinger managed to win with mainly with a lot of her superior wrestling and top control. I think damage-wise, maybe Delelo maybe even did more damage, but I was fine with the decision. As far as, like I said, 135 is not very deep outside of the UFC. A lot of the 135ers went to the UFC. Maybe Evander goes to the UFC. If she stays in Invicta, maybe she gets Lauren Murphy. She's coming off a win here. I know Evander was originally supposed to fight Kelly Cabold. That can work too. Or you can give Kelly Cabold Sarah Delalio. That'd be a cool fight as well. And finally, Nina Ansaroff beat Muna Holland by TKO in the second round. Really good win by Ansaroff here. You know, Muna Holland is actually known for her boxing. And Ansaroff TKO'd the boxer. I'm kind of thinking Nina Ansaroff versus like Jennifer Mayanex, or maybe someone new to InvictaFC. As far as Holland goes, I can't really say who she's going to fight as well, to be perfectly honest with you. The division's not very deep, so maybe Holland versus Frausa Gorgel, I guess. Yeah, but it's tough to say. Curious to see how far Nina Ansaroff can go. If the division's not very deep, she can probably get a title shot pretty quick. But the thing is, Invicta doesn't put out too many cards either. So, like, even if she gets another win, she's going to have to wait, like, another, 6 months for a title shot, you know? So, that's the thing. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for my InvictaFC 7 post-fight analysis. If you have any comments, just leave them below. And that's it for MMA for you. Thank you guys very much.